I think, key trends here in GIS. Those were the forces acting on to bring us into a key time. But these are, again, this is my own list. We could have a debate and a conversation about what trends are important to you and what you think needs to be included here. But these are just a few for us to think about. And as you move forward in your career, you've got to think carefully about what you focus on. So a word of career advice here. It's good to specialize. If you're interested and passionate about soil chemistry or city planning or population change, great. Specialize in those areas. You can't specialize in more than one or two areas. But don't lose the following. Don't lose the holistic perspective that geography and spatial thinking brings to it all. Because remember, we're talking about these complex problems in our world, and we want to think about that the biosphere intersects with the lithosphere and the cryosphere, the ice sphere, right? And the atmosphere and the anthrosphere, the human sphere, or the anthroposphere, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Anyway, the point is, all these spheres intersect. They interact, and adjusting a variable in one of the spheres affects the other sphere, right? They're not isolated. That is all to the point of you need to keep that holistic perspective in mind, because the world needs, I would argue, people that understand spheres and understand holistically the planet. Also related, you need to understand and keep this in mind, that there are cycles that are important, right? The hydrologic cycle, the carbon cycle, etc. And these are, again, complex systems that we're only beginning to understand. But the cycles are important also, the spheres and the cycles and the holistic perspective. Don't lose that. That is exactly what we need to have this more resilient future built for all of us. So specialize, but also keep the holistic perspective in mind, okay? And that leads me to another point of advice. I would highly advise you to read. Okay, read in areas that are even outside of your own comfort zone. Be widely read. Have conversations with people in other disciplines. More about that in a bit. We live in a 3D planet, so it makes sense that we can analyze in 3D. Now, for years, we could visualize in 3D in our GIS environments and with our software. We flew through the landscape, and it was great to visualize. But analyzing data in 3D is important. And don't just think about elevation. Think about maybe your crime data or your transportation data or your demographic data, median age, median income, etc. Visualizing that and analyzing that in 3D. So now with ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS City Engine, etc., you can do some 3D analysis, which is pretty exciting and important as we move forward. And second, the not complete convergence, but at least the touching of the people doing exterior space mapping, the GIS community, and the people doing interior space mapping, the BIM, Building Information Management, the CAD, Computer-Aided Drafting and Design community. These communities were sort of like people speaking Spanish and Portuguese for years. You know, they would understand, you know, bom dia and buenos dias. I mean, we kind of understood a few phrases in common, but by and large, they were two separate communities. The BIM CAD community mapping interior spaces and the GIS community mapping ecoregions and biomes and population census and enumeration, statistical areas, etc. And now with tools like ArcGIS Indoors, ArcGIS Urban, and some others, we're starting to see some touching there. And that's good, because why is that important? Well, consider a university or a community building a, I don't know, some sort of resilience model for what if there's a natural hazard on our campus and it's 3 p.m. on a Friday. Where are the students? Where are the faculty? Where are the emergency shelters? Or a community doing the same thing. To do that effectively, we need the interior spaces mapped, right? The shelters, the floors, and where people are actually residing or working at a certain time of day, at a certain day of the week, right? It changes. And we need that integrated with the larger model of the exterior spaces. So to do that, we need tools that can integrate the two. The Internet of Things, having more and more live and real-time data feeds tied to latitude, longitude, or some sort of location, and being able to feed that into ArcGIS is important. So for example, we've got things like the Living Atlas Indicators of the Planet, where you've got these little tiles, and this is all built with the Experience Builder from ArcGIS. It's sort of like the next generation web app builder, Experience Builder. It's a tool you might want to take a look at. But any one of these tools can give us a sense of what's going on in the planet right now. Okay? So for example, if we click on any of these and say, oh, well, we're going to go to wildfires, and we've got a series of interactive web maps in each one of these tiles. This particular one, sure, it's going to start with Brazil, but you can pan anywhere around the planet looking at, in this case, wildfire perimeters from the Internet of Things, sensors, and also the human sensor network. So you've got that as well at your fingertips. So another thing that you've got at your fingertips is terabyte loads, I would say petabyte loads of imagery at different times of the year. So you can look at things like urban sprawl, or if I zoom out, this is the way back imagery from Esri. You've got, again, I've got 2014 on the left side, I've got 2021 on the right side, or 2020, and then I'm going to pan over and say, oh, well, there's a desert community, and they're relying a lot on surface water. And if I look at the reservoir over to the east of this particular large city, I can see that, oh, at one glance, this is why maps are so powerful. At one glance, anyone can understand the situation here, right? The water level in the lake is going down, and if the city is getting a lot of its industrial, commercial, and residential use of water by this reservoir, there's a problem, right? That's why maps are powerful. At one glance, you can see there's a problem. What are we going to do about, not just here, but remember, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you've got lots of cities around the world with a very short supply of emergency and reserve water. So this is a serious problem. With the same tool, by the way, you can understand things like glacial retreat, coastal erosion, agricultural expansion in central USA or Saudi Arabia, the Three Gorges Dam in China. I mean, you've got a lot at your fingertips here just with this one tool. Now, on a geotechnology note, the nice thing about these web mapping applications is you've got what I consider to be level 1, where you can use it inside a web mapping application. And then if I signed in this case, to ArcGIS Online, I can take this imagery and then put it into a more powerful platform, ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, and then I can add population density, I could add aquifers, I could add mean annual precipitation, I could add other layers and integrate these in a spatial analysis format. So you've got a level 1 in the web mapping application, and then level 2 you can dig deeper. That's what I love about these tools, is that you've got a lot of capability at your fingertips in both levels. Okay, so that is the way back imagery, and I highly recommend using that. Another thing that I want you to think about is one question that I receive frequently as a geographer is, hey Joseph, haven't all the maps been made? Why are you still making maps? Well, no, they're not all made for several reasons, but one of them is touching on this reason right here. We increasingly want things in real time or near real time, right? And we want things at finer resolution. And we want maps in a wider variety of formats these days. 2D, 3D, 4D even, with temporal analysis. So no, not all the maps have been made, and we will continue to need more spatial data because we want to do all of the above, but also, most importantly, to solve problems. And so we need data, we need analysis, and we need the results shared in different ways. Fourth, I would just submit this. Enterprise, having more people in an organization be at least somewhat familiar with geospatial technology. Picture your typical city government. You've got public works, you've got the assessors, you've got transportation, you've got parks and recreation, all these organizations. In the past, the way it used to be was sort of like this. Hey, you want some maps and data layers? Yeah, go see those GIS people. They're over there. They're down the hall. They're downstairs. Go see them. Nowadays, more governments and other organizations have more people empowered to use at least some of these tools, and maybe GIS is not on their job title, but it's on their tool belt. Now, thinking about my own career, I've never actually had GIS in my job title, and you probably won't either. That's okay. We still have GIS analysts, GIS managers, But increasingly, it's just a skill on your tool belt. You're a city planner. You're a purchaser for a food company. You are a wildlife biologist. You're a health official, etc. Right? And geotechnologies and spatial thinking are key to your success in those roles, but you're not going to be GIS manager or analyst. I've been cartographer, instructor, I'm education manager at ESRI, I've been geographer, etc., but I've never actually had GIS in my title. That's okay, because the positions where GIS is in the job title are growing modestly like this. But this is the more faster, rapidly expanding role, and that is exactly, look at those job requirements and see that geotechnologies is almost always in there now, whether it's city planner, wildlife biologist, etc. So I always tell, for example, students interested in the environment, hey, it's great that you're interested in the environment. Hopefully everyone is. But you're not going to get paid to be interested in the environment. I mean, that's the harsh reality. You're not going to get paid for being interested in the environment. You know that Japanese Ikigao set of, it's like a Venn diagram. It's what are you good at, what is going to make a difference in society, and what can you get paid doing? So you want to find the intersection of all those circles, if you know what I mean. And here it's, okay, you're applying geotechnologies to city planning, to health, to the environment, to whatever area you're interested in and passionate about. That actually helps you be more employable. That's great. Okay. But enterprise, having more people in an organization, and then we have already talked about the advent of GIS being this cloud-based platform that you can actually build on. That's what makes it more powerful rather than this sort of niche desktop-only technology where it was operating for several years. And finally, artificial intelligence and machine learning are rapidly transforming GIS. I mean, picture for example, you know, this video that I filmed on a it has, what if that video could capture every tree, every light pole, every fire hydrant, every water main, the condition of the pavement, the condition of the sidewalk, the condition of the building. So it's already transformed GIS jobs. You're not going to be collecting data. You're going to be managing data, and also associated with that, managing uncertainty and managing data quality. And then also thinking about these technologies are really quite exciting. We have a business partner of ESRI called Augmented Reality Gis, which allows you to put the data as services in an app on your phone, and as I'm browsing around, I'm seeing water mains, cables, again, thinking about accuracy of spatial data, what kind of resolution, what kind of accuracy requirements do I need here? In this case, I would argue it's pretty good. You need that fine resolution. You need to know that the gas line is here rather than a few centimeters over. The point is, you've got these tools at your fingertips in 2D, 3D, and also in 4D, looking at the temporal component with some of the integration of these technologies. So that's pretty exciting as we move forward. Another thing that's exciting about GIS, I think, in the modern era, the 2020s, is, for example, let's look at it at an issue, traffic accidents. Okay, this is a serious issue. It's affected my family, maybe your family. It's a serious issue all over the world. So in the past, what we could do with GIS is we could make graphs, and we could do this kind of thing, right? We could have an interactive map where we've got a lot of traffic accidents, in this case, in a county in coastal Florida, USA, where we could analyze data, we could symbolize it. We've got a lot of data there, and it's hard to pick out patterns. But now, I want you to think about the following. In the past, GIS was sort of replicating what we did with paper maps and static documents in a digital form. That was its first several decades. Now what we can do is we could say, okay, we're going to make hex bins, or we're going to make shapes out of these accidents, okay? And then we can not just do it because it exists, but let's do it because it adds value to our understanding. So now let's extrude those traffic accidents in 3D and look at statistically high, significant number of consecutive hotspots of accidents, statistically significant. So for example, every project has constraints, correct? Budget, time, staff. And if you said, okay, I'm going to focus on these consecutive hotspots in my city or my community where traffic accidents are statistically high consecutively, days of the week, months of the year, I'm going to focus on these. And if I had more time, I'd focus on other places. So we can make maybe a significant difference in people's lives if we focus on just these areas. You see what I mean? So in other words, doing this kind of thing is a lot different from what we could do in the past. And this shows that GIS is now helping us visualize. Now again, don't use the tools just because they exist. I know these tools are compelling, and there's no shame, there's nothing wrong with you exploring new tools just because there's a new tool out and you want to explore it. That's fine. But the main reason to use these tools, again, is to understand something in a deeper, richer way and to build this more resilient world, in this case, safer communities. Okay, so that's just one example in this story map that I want you to think about, is that GIS is really